Hello viewers, before we continue with this amazing story, we will like you to be part of our family. Subscribe today and turn on the notification bell, watch to the end and don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. Now let's get back to the story. They say the loudest moments don't come with thunder. Sometimes, it's a single slap that silences an entire street. Zuwala City, known for its chaos and character, throbbed under the unforgiving midday heat. The air shimmered above the tarmac like liquid glass, and every corner pulsed with the restless rhythm of a city always on the move. The scent of roasted groundnuts and gasoline floated in the air as horns blared from packed danfos. Okadas weaved recklessly between vehicles, and street hawkers shouted the names of their goods like war chants. In the heart of it all, by the bustling Ibano Junction, stood a young woman, barely noticed in the madness. She wore nothing that drew attention, just a faded green t-shirt, dusty jeans, and flat brown slippers. A nylon bag of tomatoes dangled from her fingers. Her eyes, dark and deep, watched the chaos unfold as she waited to cross the street. Her name was Zara Munin, though no one around her knew that. And even if they had, they wouldn't have guessed that the quiet girl standing by the road was the only daughter of one of East Africa's richest and most mysterious men. But at that moment, Zara was just another face in the crowd. By choice. She was lost in thought when she noticed him, an old man, trembling at the edge of the road. His stick wobbled as he tried to gauge the space between moving cars. His back was curved like a question mark, and his eyes darted nervously from left to right. Without hesitation, Zara stepped forward. "Grandpa, let me help you," she said softly. His wrinkled face lit up with gratitude. She took his arm, leading him slowly across the frantic road. Car horns blasted, but she held steady. Her feet moved with purpose. Her heart was calm. They were just stepping onto the sidewalk when it happened. Her elbow, just barely, brushed against the side mirror of a parked silver SUV. She didn't even notice it. But someone else did. The car door flung open with a bang. A tall man emerged, his presence as loud as the slap that would follow. His suit was tailored to perfection, navy blue with crisp shoulders. His black shoes shone like mirrors. A gold chain peeked from beneath his shirt collar. He looked like power. He looked like someone who demanded respect even before he spoke. "Are you blind?" he barked, snatching off his sunglasses and glaring at her. Zara froze. The old man's grip on her hand tightened. "You scratched my car. Do you have any idea how much this mirror alone costs?" the man shouted, stepping toward her. Zara blinked, confused. She turned to look at the mirror. No scratch. Nothing. Just dust. "I didn't even know," she began. But the words hadn't left her mouth when his hand came flying across her face. Slap. The sound cracked through the street like lightning. Time paused. The danfo stopped honking. A hawker dropped a bottle of water. Pedestrians froze mid-step. Even the wind seemed to halt. Zara's cheeks stung with heat. Her bag slipped from her fingers, tomatoes rolling across the pavement. She didn't cry. She didn't move. Her face slowly turned toward the man who had struck her. He didn't flinch. "People like you," he spat, "always touching things you can't afford. You don't belong near cars like this." No one spoke. A few people began recording with their phones. Others looked away, pretending not to see. No one stepped in. The old man she'd helped squeezed her hand gently. "My daughter, leave him. God is watching," he said in a shaky whisper. Zara bent down, picked her bag, and straightened her back. She looked the man in the eye one last time and said, "Let's go, sir." And just like that, she turned and walked away, head held high, face burning, dignity intact. Behind her, the man, Kobe Mwangi, sneered, wiped the mirror with a white cloth, and entered his SUV like nothing had happened. The car roared to life and pulled away. What he didn't know was this. The girl he had just slapped in front of the whole city was the very woman he was about to be introduced to as his future wife. Zara walked the remaining blocks to her small, rented flat in silence. She unlocked the door, dropped the bag on the kitchen table, and stared into the cracked mirror in her bedroom. Her cheek was red. Her heart felt worse. She touched her face and whispered to her reflection, "So this is how they treat people like me?" No tears came. Zara hadn't come back to Zuwala to show off her wealth. She'd come to feel the city's soul again. But now the city had slapped her. Literally. And the man who did it? She didn't know his name. Not yet. But she would soon. Very soon. He had already forgotten her face. But she would never forget his hand. High above the city of Zuwala, in a glass-paneled office suite perched on the 20th floor, Kobe Mwangi leaned back in his leather chair and stared at his reflection in the window. From here, the whole city stretched beneath him, a buzzing nest of ambition, sweat, and survival. The very same city he had long conquered with flair, money, and connections. Down there, people ran after buses and bargains. Up here, Kobe made decisions that shaped industries. He took a slow sip of espresso and barely flinched as his assistant knocked and entered with a file. "Mr. Mwangi, the designs for the new Lux series are ready for your final review." He waved her away. Later. His mind had already moved on, not to the designs, not to the board meeting scheduled for 3 p.m., not even to the celebrity endorsement they were finalizing. No, his mind was empty. Peacefully so. The girl on the street? Forgotten. To him, she was a smudge on an otherwise polished day. A forgettable nuisance. He wasn't proud of slapping her. But in his world, being wrong wasn't as dangerous as looking weak. His father had raised him to believe that dominance was everything, especially in public. "Let them record," he'd once said. "By tomorrow, they'll be gossiping about something else." Kobe lived by that rule. He had no time for apologies or guilt. People didn't become powerful by second-guessing themselves. And so, as the minutes passed, he returned to work. But fate had other plans. Even as he pushed her memory into a dusty corner of his mind, across the city, that same girl was getting ready for a dinner that would change everything. Zara stood in front of her wardrobe at the Munine estate, her heart still heavy, her thoughts still circling that moment at the roadside. It had been 2 days since the incident. 2 days of silence. She had told no one. Not even her father. She had meant to keep the experiment going longer, dressing simply, walking the streets without security, understanding what it meant to be ordinary in a city ruled by class. But the slap had changed things. It had shown her the ugliness behind the smiles. How someone could be dismissed, even assaulted, simply because they looked like they didn't belong. Now she stood in front of a mirror wearing a deep emerald gown. Her hair was styled in soft waves. Diamond earrings shimmered against her skin. She looked nothing like the girl who'd been to pick up fallen tomatoes. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," said her father, standing behind her with pride. Zara turned and smiled gently. "Thank you, Baba." "I know this is sudden," he said, walking to her side, "but the Mwangis are a respected family. Kobe is their only son. Brilliant, from what I hear. And our friendship with his parents goes way back." Zara nodded quietly. Her mind raced with thoughts. Who was this Kobe? Would he be arrogant like the man on the street? Or thoughtful like the boy she once knew? She didn't realize just how close her guesses were to the truth. The dinner was hosted at the Sky Dome, an upscale rooftop restaurant with glass walls, hanging lights, and a view that could swallow your breath. The air smelled of grilled seafood, white wine, and soft roses. Laughter floated gently from other tables. A live band played jazz near the far corner. Zara and her parents arrived first. She sat gracefully, hands clasped, smile practiced. But her eyes were distant. Then they walked in. Kobe, dressed in a crisp gray suit, strolled beside his parents with casual confidence. He greeted everyone with polite warmth, his father introducing him as Zawala's finest young entrepreneur. Then came the moment. "Kobe," his father said proudly, placing a hand on his back. "Meet Zara Munin, your bride-to-be." Zara stood slowly, offering a formal smile. Kobe turned, and the smile on his face vanished like smoke. His eyes widened. Her smile dropped instantly. They both froze. It was her. It was him. The slap. The street. The shame. A heavy silence wrapped itself around the table like a wet cloth. Their parents looked confused. "Is something wrong?" Dada Munin asked carefully. Kobe's voice was tight. "No, sir. Just surprised." Zara said nothing. Her hands were clenched under the table. Dinner continued awkwardly. Small talk. Laughter from others. But between the two of them, the silence was suffocating. Finally, Zara excused herself and stepped out onto the balcony. The city lights flickered below, mocking her with their calmness. She heard footsteps. She didn't have to turn to know it was him. "Zara," he began. "Don't," she said without looking at him. "I didn't know it was you," he said softly, almost broken. "That's not the point," she said, turning slowly. Her eyes were sharp now. "It shouldn't have mattered." He swallowed hard. "You slapped someone who helped an old man cross the street. A stranger. Without thinking. Without listening. I was angry." "You were arrogant," she cut in. "You don't get to dress it up." Silence. The only sound was the wind. Then he looked at her properly. Her voice. Something clicked. "Zaza," he whispered. Zara's breath caught. "You remember?" He nodded slowly, a storm of emotions in his eyes. "The mango tree, the bracelet." Zara turned away. Too late. Kobe reached for her hand, but she stepped back. "I'm not the girl who used to braid your hair by the river," she said softly. "I'm the woman you humiliated in front of the whole city." She walked back inside. And for the first time in years, Kobe Mwangi felt something unfamiliar, regret. Some memories grow quiet with time. Others return like storms, loud, wild, and impossible to ignore. The next morning, Zara sat on the garden bench behind her father's estate, watching the hibiscus flowers dance in the breeze. A cool wind brushed her face, but it did nothing to soothe her thoughts. Her fingers played with the gold bracelet she hadn't worn in years, the one she used to wear every day as a child. The one that used to mean something. It had once been a gift from a little boy named Kobe. Now, the boy had become a man. And the man had become a stranger. Her chest tightened as she replayed the slap again in her mind, not just the pain, but the silence that followed. How the world had stopped, how no one defended her, how Kobe had looked at her like she was nothing. And now, they were meant to be husband and wife? She shook her head. She couldn't do it. But her father's voice echoed in her head, "I chose him because I trust the family." The Mwangis weren't just business partners. They were family friends with history. Her decision wouldn't just be personal, it would shift the future of both families' legacies. "Zara," her aunt called gently, walking across the grass with a tray of fresh mangoes. "You've barely touched your food." "I'm not hungry, Auntie." The older woman sat beside her, placing the tray between them. "You remember the mango tree back in Kaji village?" she asked with a smile. Zara turned, surprised. "Of course. I used to play there every day." "You and that Kobe boy," her aunt chuckled. "Always hiding from your chores." Zara's heart clenched. "You remember him too?" "How could I forget? He used to protect you like a little soldier. And you, always feeding him from your lunch bowl." Zara stared at the ground, quiet. "Funny," her aunt continued, How people grow apart and change so much. Sometimes life has a strange way of bringing them back together. Sometimes for healing, sometimes for reckoning. Zara didn't respond, but those words stayed with her long after her aunt had gone. Across town, in his sleek apartment, Kobe couldn't sleep. He'd barely touched his breakfast. His phone buzzed nonstop with messages from the office. But he ignored them all. Instead, he sat alone in the living room, staring at a dusty, old photo tucked in the back of a drawer. It was the two of them, Zara and him, no older than 10. She was grinning with mango juice on her lips, and he was holding a stick like a toy sword. Behind them, the big mango tree cast a long shadow. He had forgotten her. The one person who had seen him before the suits, the wealth, and the ego. The girl who taught him how to tie knots, who shared stories with him under the stars. How could he have forgotten her? And worse, how could he have slapped her? He replayed the incident again, shame clawing at his chest. Her eyes, filled with disbelief and hurt. The sound of the crowd falling silent. The old man's trembling hand. You don't have to know me to respect me. Her words haunted him. That day, he had thought he was simply asserting himself, protecting his pride. But now, he saw what it really was, cruelty. And now, he had to fix it. 2 days later, he arrived unannounced at the Munian estate, carrying a small box in his hand. Zara's father met him at the gate. "Ah, Kobe," he said with a smile. "I wasn't expecting you. Zara isn't home." "Actually, sir," Kobe said, lowering his eyes, "I was hoping to speak with you." Dada Munian raised a brow but nodded. "Come inside." They sat in the study, surrounded by shelves of books and artifacts from every corner of the continent. "I owe your daughter an apology," Kobe began, his voice steady but soft. "A real one. What I did, there's no excuse." Dada Munian looked at him quietly. "You recognize her now, don't you?" Kobe nodded. "I do. And even if I didn't, no one deserves to be treated like that." The old man sighed. "I won't force Zara into anything. That's not how I raised her. She has a mind of her own, and pain of her own. You'll have to find a way to reach her yourself." "I will," Kobe said, placing the small box on the table. This belonged to her once. Inside the box was a tiny plastic hair clip, shaped like a butterfly, the same one Zara had worn the day she left Kaji village for Germany. The same one she had given to him, asking him to keep it until they saw each other again. "I never threw it away," Kobe said. "I just forgot who it came from." That night, Zara returned and found the box waiting on her bed. She opened it slowly. When she saw the hair clip, her breath caught. She remembered everything. The promises, the laughter, the goodbye beneath the mango tree. She sat on the bed for a long time, the clip in her hand, the bracelet on her wrist, and tears in her eyes. She wasn't sure what it meant yet, but something in her heart cracked open. They were once inseparable. Now, every step closer felt like walking on broken glass. For days, Zara stayed quiet. The hair clip remained on her nightstand, next to the bracelet she'd never taken off since finding the box. But the anger hadn't left her fully. Neither had the shame. It clung to her like sweat in a crowded bus, uncomfortable and impossible to ignore. She had grown up around dignity, taught by her father to walk tall even when misunderstood. But what happened on that street had reduced her to something she never thought she could be again, helpless. No apology, not even from Kobe, could wipe that away so easily. But it still haunted her. She thought about how people had watched, how nobody helped, how her silence had been her only defense. And then, that same man had walked into her life, into her home, into her future, as if fate itself was mocking her. It was almost laughable. But she wasn't laughing. Not yet. Kobe didn't stop trying. The next week, he sent her a handwritten letter. No flowers, no gifts. Just ink on paper. Zaza. I don't expect forgiveness. Not yet. But I owe you more than silence. The day I slapped you was the day I lost more than my temper. I lost myself. I've spent years building an image. But you remind me of who I really was before I buried that boy under pride. If you never speak to me again, I'll understand. But if there's even a sliver of what we used to have, please, let me try. Zara read the letter twice. Then 3 times. Then folded it and placed it in her drawer. She didn't reply. But for the first time since their reunion, she smiled, just a little. Days turned into weeks. And though they didn't speak directly, their paths began to cross again. At charity galas, where Zara gave speeches about women's empowerment and education. At board meetings, where their fathers sat at opposite ends of mahogany tables, subtly watching their children's eyes meet and look away. At church functions, community fundraisers, private brunches. They never spoke more than necessary, but each glance carried unspoken weight. Until one day, something shifted. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Zara had gone to volunteer at a new children's literacy center in one of Zawala's poorest districts. She had heard about it through whispers, a place that offered books, mentorship, food, and safe space to hundreds of kids. It was called the Baobab Room. The name made her pause. When she entered the small compound, surrounded by laughter and painted walls, she stopped in her tracks. There he was. Kobe, crouched beside a group of children, teaching them how to read simple words from hand-drawn flashcards. No designer clothes. No gold watch. Just jeans, a white shirt, and dust on his hands. She didn't move. He hadn't seen her yet. He laughed as one of the children proudly shouted, "Elephant." "That's it." Kobe clapped. "Now spell it again." Zara's heart twisted. This was not the man who shouted at her in public. Not the CEO who barked at staff in boardrooms. This was the Kobe from Kaji Village. The boy who used to build toy cars from old tins and collect rainwater in buckets just for fun. He looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then he stood and walked over slowly, wiping his hands. "I didn't know you'd come," he said softly. "I didn't know this was yours," she replied. He shrugged. "It's not for show. I don't even put my name on it. The kids call it Baobab Room because they think the tree outside looks like something from a storybook." She glanced at the tree. Big, strong, just like the one back home. "I built it after that night," he added. "The night at the dinner." She looked back at him. "Why?" "Because I needed to remember who I was before the suits. Before the ego." Zara folded her arms. "And you think this makes everything okay?" "No," he said quickly. "I know it doesn't. But I'm not trying to buy forgiveness. I'm just trying to rebuild the part of me I broke." His honesty caught her off guard. He looked exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. Like a man who had finally seen his own reflection and was ashamed of what stared back. "I used to dream of changing the world," he said. "But I became the kind of man who shouts in traffic. The kind of man who forgets kindness." Zara watched the kids from a distance. One of them, a tiny boy with crooked teeth, waved at Kobe. He waved back. "I don't hate you," she said suddenly. Kobe blinked. She continued, "I hated what you did. I hated how small it made me feel." "But hate? No." Silence. Then he asked, "Do you think we could ever be something again?" Zara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned to him slowly, eyes soft but cautious. "I think we need to be something better first. Something real." Kobe nodded, almost in relief. And for the first time since their childhood, they stood side by side, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as two people rediscovering each other beneath the heavy branches of a new baobab. It takes 1 second to shatter someone, but sometimes it takes the whole world watching to decide if a person deserves to be put back together. The morning sunlight poured into Zara's room in soft golden stripes, the way it used to when she was a little girl. But she was no child now. Her world had become more complicated, more real, since Kobe re-entered it. 3 days had passed since their quiet conversation at the baobab room. 3 days since she'd seen the version of Kobe she once knew. The boy who smiled without ego. The boy who helped kids read instead of shouting at strangers. And though she still wore caution like a second skin, something had softened in her. They didn't talk much afterward, but they didn't have to. Something unspoken had shifted, like a door left slightly ajar. Until the story broke. It began with a tweet, then a blurry video, then hashtags. A popular gossip blogger, known for scandals and clickbait, posted a 45-second video from weeks ago, the moment Kobe slapped Zara on the street. The caption read, "Is this the man being hailed as the next face of African fashion? At Kobe Mwangi caught assaulting a woman in broad daylight. Hashtag cancel Kobe, hashtag slap of shame." The clip went viral in hours. By noon, news channels picked it up. By evening, every major outlet in Zawala had it on rotation. Interviews, analysis, panel discussions. And by nightfall, sponsors began pulling out. Kobe's face was everywhere, not for his success, but for his disgrace. Zara watched the chaos unfold from her living room, hands trembling slightly. She hadn't posted the video. She hadn't said a word about what happened. She had tried to move on in peace. But now, the entire country had dragged it into the spotlight. She felt sick watching it. Not because it wasn't true, but because now the healing she and Kobe had started was being ripped open by strangers who had no idea what was happening between them. People who only wanted drama, not justice. She read comments that ranged from outrage to jokes, from support to hate. Some blamed Kobe. Some blamed her. Some mocked both. It wasn't healing anymore. It was public bloodsport. Meanwhile, Kobe's world unraveled. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Board members demanded statements. Clients froze deals. His own mother called crying. "What were you thinking, Kobe?" "I wasn't," he admitted over and over again. "I wasn't thinking at all." His PR team drafted statements. Apologies. Explanations. But none of it mattered. The damage was already done. And in the middle of it all, silence from Zara. He didn't blame her. But it hurt. That evening he turned off his phone, left his apartment, and drove in silence. He didn't even know where he was going. Until he found himself on the same street. The one with the junction. The place where everything began. He parked the car and stood there for a long time, staring at the sidewalk. People passed him by without recognition. They had no idea who he was. That made it worse, or maybe better. Then someone tapped his arm. It was the same old man. The one Zara had helped across the street. He had a faded brown cap, the same walking stick, and a gentle squint in his eyes. "You're the boy who slapped that girl," the man said plainly. Kobe's throat tightened. "Yes." The old man nodded slowly. "And now you've come back to face the ghost." Kobe didn't reply. "She forgave you?" "I don't know," Kobe whispered. "She said she didn't hate me. But now, the whole world does." The old man tapped the ground twice with his stick. "Then fix your heart. Not for the world. For her. For yourself." Then he walked away. Zara couldn't sleep that night. She had thought about calling Kobe, but she didn't know what she would say. Sorry the world found out? Sorry they're dragging you? Sorry they're seeing the worst version of you without knowing the rest? None of it felt right. Until her phone buzzed with a new video notification. Kobe had gone live. Thousands of people joined instantly. But his face wasn't polished. He wasn't in a suit. He stood in front of the baobab room, with children in the background playing under the tree. He spoke calmly, quietly, eyes direct. I'm not here to defend myself. There's no defense for what I did. I slapped someone I didn't know. Someone who didn't deserve it. I was arrogant. I was wrong. But I've spent the last few months learning what it means to actually care. Not just look successful. Not just sound important. But to be better. This place, this shelter, exists because of the person I hurt. She reminded me of who I used to be before I let pride ruin me. If you're watching this, you have the right to cancel me. But I hope you also believe people can change. Thank you. Even if you never speak to me again. He ended the stream. No PR polish. No tears. Just truth. Zara closed her eyes. Her heart ached in a new way. The next morning, she returned to the baobab room. She didn't tell anyone. She just needed to be there. When she arrived, Kobe was outside, sweeping dust from the walkway. He looked up. Surprised. Cautious. Hi, she said. Hi, he breathed. She walked up slowly. I saw the video. I meant every word, he replied. Even the hard parts. Zara nodded, folding her arms. You did a stupid thing, Kobe. I know. But you're doing something right now. His eyes searched hers. So, she said, her voice steady, what are you doing tomorrow? He blinked. I don't know. Why? She gave him a small smile. Because I think the kids here need a few more storybooks. And maybe 2 people to read them. Some scars fade. Others whisper your name when you least want to hear it. Zara sat cross-legged on the floor of the baobab room, a group of children huddled around her. They leaned in as she flipped through the colorful pages of a storybook titled, The Lion Who Lost His Roar. Her voice rose and fell like music, pulling the children deeper into the tale. Kobe stood by the doorway watching quietly. A soft smile played on his lips, not just because of the story, but because of her. Zara glowed in moments like this. The laughter in her eyes, the way she brought even the shyest children out of their shell, reminded him of the girl she used to be, and the woman he was still getting to know again. Their days had fallen into a rhythm now, not lovers, not strangers, not quite friends. Something more delicate. Something still forming. Every morning she came. Every evening she left. And in the quiet moments between, they talked. Not about the slap. Not about the wedding plans their families had quietly placed on hold. Just life. The things that mattered. The people they used to be. But time, like truth, never stays hidden for long. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. Zara had just left the center, walking down the dusty road that led to the main street, when a black SUV pulled up beside her. She stopped, squinting into the tinted glass. The window rolled down. Her mother's face appeared, tense and unsmiling. Get in, Zara. She hesitated but obeyed. Inside, her mother was silent for a long time. The car hummed along the road as the city passed them by in blurs. You're spending too much time with that boy, her mother finally said. Zara raised an eyebrow. He has a name. You know what I mean. He's not the same person he was, Mama. Her mother cut her off. He humiliated you in front of the world, Zara. Do you know how hard your father worked to protect you after that video went viral? The press wouldn't leave us alone. And now you're walking around with him like nothing happened. Zara folded her arms. I'm not doing it for the press. I'm doing it for me. Her mother sighed, exasperated. You think this is strength, but it's not. It's softness. Dangerous softness. Zara turned to the window, biting her lip. She didn't argue further. But the words stung. Meanwhile, across the city, Kobe was facing ghosts of his own. He sat in the office of his father, a stern, aging man with eyes like sharpened glass. The room was filled with family portraits, trophies, and framed business awards. "This thing with Zara," his father said without looking up, "end it." Kobe looked up sharply. "What? End it?" "Whatever this reconciliation is. I spoke to Dad Munin. The marriage plans are being re-evaluated. Do you want to know why?" Kobe stayed silent. "Because people still talk. Because some investors now see you as a liability. Because the board is nervous." Kobe laughed dryly. "You mean because I'm not pretending anymore?" His father slammed a hand on the desk. "Because you're acting like a boy again. Playing with children and teaching street rats to read? That's not leadership. That's pity work." Kobe stood up. "No, Baba. That's humanity. Something you taught me to bury." His father stared at him, cold. "If you want to keep this company, you'll let her go." Quietly. The pressure began to build. From both sides. Zara's friends whispered. Her aunt questioned. Her foundation partners raised eyebrows. Kobe's board threatened. His investors backed out. Even his own mother started avoiding conversations about Zara. They were becoming a scandal, not because of the slap, but because of the forgiveness. Because neither of them was reacting the way society expected them to. And then the letter came, delivered by hand to Zara's door. From the Mwangis. The Munins. Dear esteemed friends, after careful consideration, we believe it is in the best interest of both families to suspend the arranged union between Zara Munin and Kobe Mwangi indefinitely. While we hold your family in high regard, we must prioritize the reputation and stability of both households during these challenging times. Zara read the words with trembling hands. Her father came into the room moments later, his face tired. They've made it official, he said. Zara looked at him. And you agree? He hesitated. I only want you to be happy. But this path will not be easy, Zara. Public forgiveness isn't always received with grace. She nodded slowly. I understand. She didn't cry. But her heart felt like a glass cup slipping from a table, still intact midair, but she already knew how it would shatter. That evening, she went to the Baobab room. Kobe was alone, cleaning up paint cans from the afternoon's art class. When he saw her, his face brightened, then dimmed when he saw the envelope in her hand. They've called it off, she said softly. He nodded. I know. Silence. I didn't ask for this, he added. I know. I still want. I know, she said again. Her voice broke slightly. He took a deep breath. Then let's not listen to them. Let's forget the deal, the history, the pressure. Let's just be the... whatever that means. However long it takes. She looked up at him. Eyes full of pain. Fear. And something more dangerous. Love trying to grow through concrete. Can we do that? She whispered. I'm willing to try every day, he replied. Even if it hurts. She stepped forward slowly, resting her head gently against his chest. He held her like she was made of smoke and light. And though everything around them tried to pull them apart, they stood still beneath the stars, refusing to let go. But neither of them knew. The past wasn't done with them yet, and the next storm would test their bond like never before. Some secrets are buried not to protect others, but to protect ourselves from who we used to be. The day started like any other. Warm sun, soft breeze, children playing outside the Baobab room. Zara arrived just before noon, her arms full of new books and art supplies. Kobe was already there, fixing the shelves with one of the older boys. They smiled at each other, that kind of quiet smile two people share when words aren't needed. It had been a week since both families ended the marriage plans. A week since the world stopped deciding for them. A week of peace. But peace has a strange habit of breaking when you start to trust it. That afternoon, a visitor came. He wasn't dressed like the others. No dusty jeans or old sandals. He wore a stiff gray kaftan and dark glasses. His car, a government-plated black SUV, idled just outside the center, engine humming like a threat. He asked for Kobe. The kids watched curiously from the windows as Kobe stepped out and met the man by the gate. Zara stood nearby, arms folded. The man removed his glasses and gave a small smile. But it didn't reach his eyes. "You've made quite the name for yourself, Mr. Mwangi." Kobe tilted his head slightly. "Do I know you?" "Not yet. But you will," the man replied. "I work with the Central Audit Commission. We've been reviewing certain financial records, and some things don't add up." Kobe's brows furrowed. "What things?" The man took out a folded document and handed it over. 3 years ago, Luxware received a major offshore investment. The source was unclear. But recently, a whistleblower came forward claiming the funds were laundered, used to cover personal debts, fake supplier contracts, and a bribe connected to a land acquisition deal in Kiambu. Kobe's heart dropped. "That's not true," he said immediately. "I never." "You're not under arrest," the man interrupted. "Not yet. But we suggest you prepare for a formal investigation. You'll be contacted." With that, the man turned and walked back to the SUV. Zara rushed over as Kobe stood frozen, the document still in his hand. "What was that?" He looked at her, jaw tight. "They think I stole from my own company." The news broke the next morning. Fashion CEO under investigation for fraudulent transactions. More scandal for Kobe Mwangi? Is the golden boy's shine finally fading? It was everywhere. Television, radio, blogs, even business forums. Zara watched in disbelief as headlines blurred across her phone. She reached for it, dialing Kobe instantly. No answer. She tried again. Nothing. When she finally found him, he was sitting at the same junction where they'd first met, the place he slapped her, the place he swore never to forget. He didn't look up when she approached. "They want to destroy everything," he said quietly. "Everything I built. Everything I fixed." She sat beside him, saying nothing. "It's my father," he said after a while. "It has to be. That land deal in Kiambu, I never signed anything. But he did. Through my name." Zara's eyes widened. "He used your name?" Kobe nodded slowly. "When I started the company, he said I needed to show growth quickly. I trusted him. I didn't ask questions. I didn't know what he was doing with the finances." Her heart ached for him. "They're going to strip everything away," he said. "Luxware. The foundation. The respect. Even this place." "No," Zara cut in. "Not this place. The Baobab Room isn't built on fake money or press. It's built on truth. On you. The real you." "But who's going to believe that now?" She looked him dead in the eye. "I do." Over the next few days, the pressure mounted. Investigators combed through records. Lawyers made phone calls. Investors vanished like smoke. Even former friends began to distance themselves. Events where Kobe was once a guest of honor suddenly postponed. Doors once wide open now shut quietly without explanation. Zara stood by him every single day. But even she was beginning to feel the weight. Her own foundation sponsors started asking questions. News outlets sent interview requests. Her mother begged her to walk away. "This will destroy your future," she warned. "Your name is already being dragged through the mud with his. What else do you want to lose?" Zara didn't answer. Instead, she went to the Baobab Room that evening and found Kobe alone inside, staring at the bracelet on the windowsill. The same bracelet from their childhood. "I want to confess something," she said. Kobe turned. "What?" "That day. When you slapped me, she said quietly, I was more than just hurt. I was humiliated. I also realized something. He waited. I had started becoming like you. Before the slap, I judged people too. I looked at them from a pedestal. I wore my simple girl disguise thinking I was better for pretending to be humble. But that day reminded me, real humility is what you do when no one is watching. He stepped closer, his voice low. So why are you still here, now that the world is watching? She smiled. Because this time I am watching. And I see you. The next morning, Zara called a press conference. She stood on the small stage inside the baobab room, facing dozens of microphones, cameras, reporters, and flashing lights. And for the first time, she spoke publicly about everything. The slap, the silence, the forgiveness, and the man behind the scandal. But she didn't defend him blindly. She told the truth. Kobe Mwangi made a mistake. A public one. And I was the one who paid for it. But since then, I've watched him rebuild not his brand, but his character. He didn't know about the fraud. And I believe the truth will prove that. Until then, I stand with him. Because forgiveness isn't weakness. It's strength wearing a scar. The crowd went silent. And then applause. Not from everyone. But enough. Enough to plant a seed. That night, Kobe sat beside her beneath the real baobab tree behind the center. The moonlight made everything feel still. You didn't have to do that, he whispered. I know, she replied, resting her head on his shoulder. But I wanted to. He held her hand, eyes on the stars. And though the future was uncertain, for the first time in a long time, they both felt something rare. But the final test was still ahead. And tomorrow, the truth would arrive. Every story has its breaking point, but the ones worth telling always find their way back to the beginning. The courtroom was silent. Not the silence of peace, but the kind that comes before a verdict. The kind that holds its breath. The kind that presses against your chest. Kobe stood beside his lawyer, wearing a black suit with no tie, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. Across the room, reporters scribbled notes, their cameras like blinking eyes waiting for something dramatic. Zara sat in the gallery, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the judge. Her father sat beside her, calm but alert. Her mother clutched a handkerchief. The final report had been submitted the night before, a full audit of Luxware's finances, reviewed and verified by an independent firm. It traced every naira, every dollar, every deal. And what they found? Kobe was innocent. Completely. It had been his father. Operating quietly behind company layers, funneling funds through dummy accounts and offshore vehicles, all under Kobe's legal authority, without his knowledge. The paper trail was undeniable. Even more shocking was the timing. The fraud had started the very year Luxware exploded in popularity. The year Kobe stopped looking at balance sheets and started trusting people to do it for him. Now, he stood in court not as a criminal, but as a man caught in a web he hadn't even known existed. The judge cleared his throat. Mr. Kobe Mwangi, he said firmly, you are cleared of all allegations. No criminal intent or participation has been established against you. You are free to go. The room erupted. Some clapped. Others whispered. A few reporters rushed out to break the news first. But Kobe didn't react. He turned only to look at Zara. And she was already on her feet, eyes full of tears, smiling like sunlight after rain. Outside the courthouse, cameras swarmed them. Questions flew like arrows. Kobe, how do you feel about being cleared? Zara, will the wedding be back on? Is your relationship stronger now? Zara raised a hand, calm but commanding. This isn't about a wedding, she said. This is about rebuilding. About truth. Then she reached for Kobe's hand and said just loud enough for the crowd to hear. and about second chances. Weeks passed. The pressure slowly faded. News cycles moved on. Other scandals replaced theirs. But the ones who mattered never forgot. The Baobab room expanded, with more volunteers, new books, and a computer room funded by Zara's foundation. Kobe stepped down as CEO of Luxwear voluntarily, choosing instead to consult while mentoring young entrepreneurs. He didn't need to be in the spotlight anymore. And Zara? She spoke on stages across the country, not as the girl who forgave the slap, but as a voice for grace, strength, and quiet power. But the best stories don't end with applause. They end where they began. One warm afternoon, months after the court case, Zara stood beneath the baobab tree at the center. A soft breeze blew through the branches, and laughter echoed from nearby children chasing each other with sticks and chalk-stained hands. Kobe approached from behind, a nervous smile on his face. In his hand, he held something small, old and slightly rusted. The bracelet. Her childhood bracelet. "I've been carrying this for a long time," he said, "even when I forgot what it meant." She turned to him, heart full. "And now?" He got down on one knee. The kids stopped playing. Even the wind seemed to pause. "Zara Munin," he said, voice steady, "will you walk with me, not just under this tree, but for the rest of our lives?" She didn't hesitate. She stepped forward, took the bracelet, and wrapped it around her wrist, then leaned down and kissed his forehead. "Yes," she whispered, "but only if you promise one thing." He looked up. "Anything. Never forget who we were beneath this tree." Their wedding was simple. Not in a cathedral, not in a ballroom, but beneath the baobab sky, just like their promise as children. No microphones. No headlines. Just love. Real, tested, beautiful love. And as the sun dipped behind the horizon, casting golden light through the ancient branches, they danced barefoot in the dirt, surrounded by children, elders, and people who had seen their scars, and chose to celebrate their healing. Because sometimes a slap isn't the end of the story. Sometimes it's the moment everything truly begins. Thank you everyone for watching this story to the end. Tell me in the comments section if you enjoy the story, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you on the next one.